before the bell here on MMA Oddsmaker. That's Nick Kalikas. I'm Frank Trigg. We got to jump right into Bellator 179, of course, with the co-main event of Vassell and McGeary, the main event of Daley and MacDonald. But just before this, we got hit with some breaking news. I don't know if it was really breaking news because we're all kind of deciding that, hey, this fight's going to happen anyway. But Dana White came out and said he got his deal done with Conor McGregor. And then that they're just now waiting on to get the deal done with Mayweather's side, which is great that he got the deal done with McGregor, but that's his boy. It doesn't really mean that the fight's on, right? It doesn't mean that the fight's actually going forward because there's still the other whole half of the side to get done with, right, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, it's progress, so at least they got a portion of it, resolved. Now the hard part is going to be dealing with Mayweather, obviously, for the rest of the way and seeing if they can actually come to terms. I think it is going to – there's just way too much money out there for them to leave on the table. And if you look at it from Mayweather's perspective – I mean, it's really not a huge risk. I know Conor has a lot of power. I mean, you can make a case for that. I mean, he's definitely a strong guy that has a puncher's chance, but this is boxing, let's not forget. And Mayweather has dealt with power, boxers in the past as well. And I mean, the guy's undefeated and one of the best all time. I mean, the best all time he's considered, really. You can argue that, I guess, with Muhammad Ali, right, for boxing, pound for pound or whatever. But that being said, for a reason. I mean, defensively, he's going to be hard to hit, and obviously he's going to be able to school McGregor on the feet. I mean, in a pure boxing matchup, I mean, he's just going to be too fast. He's just going to be a little bit too good for McGregor in that regard. But if the line's out right now at 5 dimes, it's actually minus 1,100 for Mayweather, and the comeback on McGregor is at plus 700. So it's a steep line, but you know what? There's places out there that have it even more, of a wider margin actually, and Mayweather's actually a bigger favorite. But you know what? Regardless, you're going to get action on Conor McGregor. I mean, you could expect that. Even if the people that aren't giving him much of a chance in a pure boxing matchup, they're still going to take a lot of action at the sports books. So despite all that, I mean, just the names themselves pull, especially when are you ever going to see McGregor as a dog like that, plus 700, whether it's boxing, MMA, or whatnot. I mean, he's just such a big draw. I mean, he's going to attract action regardless. So the line being a little bit lower at 5 dimes makes a lot of sense, in my opinion, because, again, they're going to get hit with that action. And you're still going to have enough where you're going to need Floyd to win the fight, and that's where you want to be in a boxing matchup. You want to be on the Floyd Mayweather side because he's obviously going to win his fight if it does go down.
Unfortunately, I feel like this fight's going to be the same thing we saw with Mayweather and Pacquiao, where the hype up, the build up, the delays that happen in between. We had to wait 3 years for that fight to actually happen. Both guys were now out of their prime. It made more sense for Mayweather at that time to fight Pacquiao later because he had less of a chance of beating him. Both guys in their prime, I think Pacquiao would have been a little bit closer to catching him. Not saying he would have beat him, but it would have been a lot closer. But ultimately what happened is the hype did not live up to the fight. The fight fell apart. Like, it just was not that exciting. A lot of boxing folks are like, yeah, I'm interested in this McGregor-Mayweather fight, but I'm not paying $89 for it, which is what the Pacquiao-Mayweather fight was at. So it's going to have to be a lot cheaper if you want to see it on pay-per-view. Or I'm just going to go to whatever, some special, whatever, Buffalo Wild Wings or some spot to go watch it on pay-per-view. I'm not going to pay for it myself. And that is kind of how I see this fight going. I think it's going to be all hype. You're not going to find two better guys in knowing how to sell a fight. There is nobody out there right now better than Conor McGregor selling an MMA fight. There's nobody better out there than Floyd Mayweather to sell a boxing fight. The question is, what's the fight actually going to be like? I kind of feel like once we get to the are you ready? Are you ready? Let's fight. That now all of a sudden that's the end of it. Like all the hype is done, and we're just going to see Mayweather take over. And like, I got to be honest with you, if McGregor gets into the third round, that's going to make boxing look really bad. Like really bad. There's like now, okay, so anybody can show up and anybody can do this sport then. And kind of get their things together because boxing's not really a sport. If some guy has never done it before ever at the professional level, all of a sudden shows up and lasts 3 rounds with the best guy in the sport to ever play the game, you're like, well, okay, your sport's really not that good.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, honestly, and it's going to be interesting to see how long it goes. But I think you're right. I mean, absolutely. Once the fight starts, we're all probably going to be disappointed in the way it goes. I mean, I was, like you said, the Pacquiao fight was a little bit disappointing too after all the buildup. But you know what? We're all still going to be watched because we want to watch and we're all still going to buy it. All the diehards or whatnot too. I mean, it's going to do great numbers just because of star power, like we just mentioned between the two. So despite that, and I think a lot of people expect it. They realize that it's going to be that kind of fight or that kind of result, but we're still a little bit curious to see it for sure. You know what I mean? And I mean, even myself, I know, like I said, how it's probably going to play out. And we're going to be disappointed. But part of me, wants Conor McGregor to be able to pull off that huge upset that nobody thinks he can really do. And again, I know it's a little bit unrealistic for sure, but, part of me wants to see if it's by chance, if that miracle can kind of happen, I think that's what's going to be the intriguing thing. And again, Conor sells the fight so good. Mayweather's, one of the top at doing that as well, obviously with the way they promote, and all that stuff that you just said. So it's definitely going to sell. They're definitely going to make a ton of money. And again, it's going to be probably an easy night's work for Mayweather. And at the same time, you're not going to discredit McGregor that much. He'll just jump right back into UFC, start kicking butt again like he normally has, you know what I mean? And he's going to be just fine. So even a loss for McGregor is not a bad loss because it's against, Mayweather in boxing. So you bring Mayweather into MMA, it's a whole other story. Obviously, we all know that as well. I mean, Mayweather does not have a chance against Conor McGregor in MMA. So it is what it is, but it is definitely a fight that will be great for websites. I mean, all the, the media out there are going to love it because you mention either one of these guys and you get clicks. I mean, talk about clickbait. This is the ultimate clickbait anytime anybody brings it up. I mean, it's great for us to even be talking about it on this show as well. I'm sure we're going to probably get some extra clicks on it. So,
I mean, literally, I got clickbaited earlier today because there's a photo of Conor out with his son that has just been born. It was like Day with Daddy or something was the Twitter post he put up. But somebody else put it on their website, and I clicked on it because I thought it was going to be like this full story on what Conor was doing with his son, first time out of the house, whatever. Told it was like Conor with his son, like the first like 3 sentences, whatever, and then it moved on to some other garbage, crappy story that I had no interest in. I'm like, I got clickbaited. And 100% just because it was McGregor's, Conor's photo was on there. I was like, I got to freaking pay attention to this photo. I got to look what's going on. It's crazy. It's crazy how much this hype is. But the real reason why I brought it up, Nick, is because I want to make it a good segue into these fights. And unfortunately, usually, for the folks at home, Nick and I usually don't discuss these fights at all before we tape this. We just come on there blind. We both have our opinions, and we just kind of see what each other lay at. We don't want to change anybody's idea, and we want to have that banter. But we talked a little bit about the Linton Vassell fight and the Liam McGeary fight. And I kind of disagree with what Nick said earlier. You're saying that this is off camera, so no one else has seen this yet, that you think that Vassell may actually try to take McGeary down to stop from getting hit. I'm under the impression that both guys are going to try to keep this on their feet because there's no benefit to Vassell being on top of McGeary with his great bottom work. But you disagree with me.
Yeah, I do actually. I think that he will go. I mean, that's Vassell's game. He wants to get the fight to the floor a lot of times. I mean, that's where he definitely has the biggest advantage is on the ground. I mean, he has pretty solid wrestling and takedown ability. He's got a great submission game. He positions himself well on the ground. That's his path to victory here, even though, like you said, McGeary actually has a heck of a ground game. He's got great jiu-jitsu in his own right. And even on his back, he doesn't mind being there because he's such a tough guy to deal with. I mean, he's always looking for subs. I mean, look at Emmanuel Newton. I mean, he was able to get top position, on McGeary, and it didn't work out so great for him. Now, other guys like Phil Davis had a little bit, easier time doing so. And Vassell might as well. I think his submission defense is good enough where if he gets a fight to the floor, that's the way he can win this fight is basically by controlling a little bit or by maybe taking his back along the way and trying to, sink in that RNC and winning the fight that way too. So I do think Vassell has a path to victory here, and it is on the ground. If it stays standing, McGeary has a bigger edge, I think, because he is by far the better striker, and I think he'll be able to pick Vassell apart and probably land a bomb or two on the feet, and that's might make it for a short night.
So help me out if I'm wrong, but I think most of Vassell's submissions are from his back, aren't they?
Vassell likes to get top position to take your back as well. So not all of his submissions are from his back. In fact, I think he's better on top, honestly. And again, transitioning to your back, I think is where. But McGeary, I think, is a little bit better off his back, to be honest with you. I think that's where it's going to favor him. But the thing is, he can't get too comfortable there. But a lot of times you don't have to really worry as much about it because, like I said, he scrambles. Like as far as shifting for position, he has those long limbs that he wraps around you well. So I think he's going to be active even on his back. And some judges these days, as you know, are starting to score more for the guys that are on their back to stay active too. So if it does hit the scorecards, it's going to be interesting to see what the judges like best, because both of these guys are going to be scoring. I think it's a great fight, to be honest with you. And in fact, let me read you the line right now. It is currently minus 185 plus 170. So McGeary is the favorite. Coming into this fight, almost a 2-1 favorite. But I think Vassell as a dog might be the way to go here, to be honest with you. I think that there could be some value. A lot of people probably aren't going to hold him in that regard. Like McGeary's a former champion, he can accept his loss to Davis or whatnot. This is a kind of a step down in competition, but stylistically, I think it's a tough matchup.
I agree. It's a very tough matchup. And I actually talked about that with Liam in my interview with him here at MMA Oddsmaker. That this is a tough matchup. He sees Linton as a very tough, crafty guy. He's another Englishman, so he's going to come to fight. He's going to come to brawl. He's going to be hard to put away. Like just have those really a big heart and a tough sense about him. But Liam felt like that his wrestling was better, and he felt like that he wasn't going to be able to take him down. But one of the flaws that we've all watched, a fighter can say whatever he wants. What we see is what we see in the fights. He does not have very good takedown defense. Liam doesn't, and we know that Linton is going to try to take him down when he gets in trouble. I just don't think he's going to try and take him down too much, realizing that if he gets put in a bad position when he gets on the ground, if Linton does take him down and ends up in a funky position, that Liam with his long legs, his long limbs, is going to catch him in something. And we've seen Liam do it time and time again. He's caught Ortiz with that reverse triangle or the inverted triangle. We've seen all sorts of different stuff happen with Liam catching people as they try to do different stuff to him from on top. But also, too, we see Liam get in trouble. His limbs are long and lanky. When he goes to move, there's a lot of space in there. And if Linton can take advantage of it, and I know Linton's grappling coach, Neil Melanson, down at the Black Zillions, and he's been working very hard with him to make sure he stays tight and passes. I'm very interested to see how this thing plans out. I still think this fight's going to end up on the feet. And in that case, I have to give it to Liam. McGeary's just the better fighter. If it does hit the ground, though, I kind of got to agree with you, Nick. Vassell's going to be able to pull out the victory if he can get him down every single round. Yeah,
I agree. I think, again, if it stays standing, there's a bigger edge to McGeary on the ground. It gets interesting. I mean, because both of them are extremely talented on the ground as well. So I'm looking forward to it. This is definitely a good matchup. This is one that's intriguing. And again, we'll see how they actually match up in the cage. But McGeary is definitely the more popular of the two fighters. And he's done great in Bellator. Look at the run that he did go on. Like you said, he's got a couple decent notches on his resume as well. And if he beats Vassell, that'll be another one. I mean, it's a quality win for him. So, he's going to keep on moving back up the ladder and probably get another title shot down the road. But if Vassell can pull off this win, then he sets himself in a nice spot. He'll have to wait for Bader and Phil Davis to do their thing, and then we'll see where they put him in there. But it'd be a huge win for him as well. So important fight, definitely, for both guys.
For sure. All right, let's move on to the main event. What's his nickname now? Rory MacDonald, Aries, the Red Devil. I don't know, whatever. He keeps changing his nickname.
Yeah, you know what? I haven't kept up too well either, but but I mean, Rory is one of the best welterweights, for a long time out there. And that's a great pickup for Bellator, although we'll see what he has left. I mean, a lot of times you see the UFC lets some of these guys go and then they go to another organization and they don't really perform. It's almost like they hit that decline spot and it was a good time for them to let him go, and not pick him up. Rory's been in some wars, man. So we'll see what happens here too.
I gotta disagree with you. I don't think the UFC let him go as much as he priced himself out of their budget. And I think that he got smart and was like, look, I'm going to have to battle up against Lawler again. I'm going to have to battle up against T. Wood, who I think he's already got a victory over Woodley. And he's like, I got to battle these guys. They're hard hitters, and I've already had my nose shattered and my confidence maybe a little broken, maybe not. We won't know until we see the fight. But I think he upped his price high enough for the UFC. He's like, we're just not going to match that. Go ahead and go to Bellator. And Bellator is going to give him the matchups. And if you can get more pay, and this is just me thinking outside the box, if I can get more pay and fight in Bellator than when I was fighting in the UFC, I'm going to take the Bellator pay. Because especially with Rory MacDonald, you've already gone through all those battles. You've already gone through all those welterweights and all those hard hitters and those absolute terrors. How many terrors are there actually in Bellator at the welterweight division? Unfortunately, your first one is the guy you got. Yeah, the first one is the sucky one. After that, it's kind of cruising, right? He's not really going to be that much damage. He might lose, but he's going to be cruising after this one. This fight he has to worry about. And I don't think the broken nose is really going to be that much of a problem for him. He's had the surgery. He's sat out a year. He's got everything fixed. I don't think it's going to be a broken nose. It's going to bother him as much as the first time that Paul hits him hard in the nose. When he goes to that flashback of, holy crap, I'm really getting hit hard. I'm in a fight. What do I do now? And that's what I think is we're trying to check his mental capability. And that's why I really worry about Rory in this one. One, this is in Paul's hometown in London. Half the crowd will be there specifically just to see Paul fight. No one's leaving early until this main event is done, specifically because they want to see Paul fight. And Paul, they call him Simtex for a reason. He's got dynamite in his hands. He can knock you out with one punch and crack you hard. I'm just wondering, how is Rory going to be able to handle all this?
Yeah, I mean, that's the interesting thing here because by far Rory's a better fighter. I mean, he's better almost everywhere the fight takes place. I mean, even though Daley has a striking, and you can argue, about that area, but let's not forget, I mean, Rory's a heck of a striker himself too. I mean, offensively, the guy gets it done. It's just unfortunately, like you said, he's been in those wars. I mean, that nose has taken a beating, you know what I mean? He, despite the surgery and whatnot, I mean, that makes me feel a little bit less confident though in him right now as well. You know what I mean? Because how many times can you get that sucker shattered like he has? You know what I mean? It's not going to get any better despite even surgery and rest. I mean, I would assume it's still going to be pretty weak. You know what I mean? If he gets clipped clipped by a power puncher again, like Daley is. So that does bother me a little bit, but I don't think he's going to have to probably worry about it as much if he fights smart, because the path to victory here is to get Paul Daley on his back and go to work on the ground. Now, Daley's sub defense is getting better. His takedown defense is always okay, but you can't put Daley on his back and you can't control him a little bit, and you can beat him on the ground. So I think that's what Rory needs to get back to, is kind of just becoming a complete MMA fighter. Don't even play the stand-up game here. I don't think it's even worth, the risk. Even though a lot of times Rory can control the distance, he's smart about, the way he approaches a stand-up fight, even against a good striker. A lot of times he has control of that distance, and he utilizes his reach well over fighters. But I still wouldn't want to play that game. I'd want to get this fight to the ground, try to finish Daley on the ground, and then move on to, like you said, your second fight, and then we'll see what happens from there.
You definitely don't want to be in a stand-up war with Daley, and I agree with you. If Rory's going to win this fight, he's got to get it down to the ground. And for a long time, everyone's talking about how Rory MacDonald is GSP's protege, and how he's the next coming of GSP and all these other things. And then the weight class just got tougher, and so he just couldn't maintain. He couldn't handle it in the UFC as far as being at the top of the heap the way that GSP was, where he ran the gamut for 10 title defenses. But Rory is much better, and I've had this argument with a lot of different people. Rory is actually way better on top than GSP is. And this is my point. GSP's basically got one or two passes. That's all he has. But he goes to them all the time, eventually gets every single one of them. He will grind you out and beat you up, but he's not going to knock you out or cut you very badly from on top. Where MacDonald has this way of not only passing you a couple, he has like 4 or 5 different ways he likes to use to pass the guard if he gets caught in that, if it's not a full pass on a takedown. But he also knows how to cut you when he's on top, how to make you hurt when he's on top of you. So it's not going to be a grind out, sit on a guy for 5 rounds kind of fight that we saw with GSP before he retired 3 years ago. If he gets back to that style of him getting where he just wants to do damage on top, he can beat Paul Daley pretty easily. Because Paul, if he gets hit for a while, will start to reach and start to look for, start to get frustrated and start to push to get you off, which leaves everything open for Rory to either sneak around the arms and land more striking or jump to a submission. So that's my style that I want to see Rory at. Who knows what he's going to come up with, though? Who knows how he's going to show up? It's always that question after that big, long layoff and a bad injury like he had, what's going to happen?
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, you can't blame him for taking the money earlier either. I didn't kind of touch on that, but yeah, you're right. Absolutely. UFC kind of didn't, match the offer or whatnot. That's why I say they kind of let him go over there. I think the way that it kind of played out towards the end of Rory's career, though, I think it kind of let them be okay with that decision. And again, for Rory, man, to hopping in there and taking that money while he can, that's a great move. I mean, Bellator willing to pay it, and he is immediately. I mean, he's going to have easier fights, like you said, overall. I mean, even though this is stylistically an interesting one, I mean, Bellator still, the roster is a lot weaker overall than UFC. We all know that as well. So you're going to make more money by fighting easier opponents. You really can't beat that. But again, it all starts with getting a victory here, and we'll see. I mean, if this stays up on the feet, Daley always has a puncher's chance. I mean, he is a gifted power puncher. We all know that for sure. So, but I still think, I mean, right now Rory's minus 335, the comeback's plus 275. So Rory, a decent, solid favorite, and he deserves to be because, again, he's always, in my mind, for the last several years, he's been one of the top welterweights in the world, regardless of the organization. I mean, he is definitely elite level. I mean, through the, let's not forget, he's been doing this thing for a long time. So, he's not like an old man here. I mean, fight years, he's beyond probably what his current age is. But that being said, I mean, he's got so much experience against quality competition, good training camp. I mean, you could say Daley's been around the block and backs as well, right? He's had a heck of a career. So both these guys have been around a while. But I still think that, I mean, he's a solid favorite for a reason. And more times than not, he should probably get the job done here against Daley.
I think MacDonald's ranked 4th or 5th right now in the USA Today fighters poll, or the ranking poll that they put out. I think Roy's like 4th or 5th right now in the ranking, which still is the top end of the division. I mean, we all know at any point in time, if you're in the top 5, you're eventually going to get called up for a title fight just because what happens, people get hurt, it's time for the champ to fight, or other guys are matched up, you're going to get called up. So Rory was literally, if he was still with the UFC, he would literally be one fight away from being in a title shot. It's that close to him, and now he's in Bellator, so he's one fight away from being in a title shot by winning this fight. I gotta think they're gonna give the winner of the Lorenz Larkin Lima fight has got to get the winner of this one. I mean, that's what I gotta think is gonna happen at Bellator 180, and then we'll go from there. And that is a bad matchup. These two guys, whoever wins between MacDonald and Daley, is a bad matchup for whoever wins on the other side with Lima and Larkin.
Yeah, well, here's the thing, though. I mean, you just mentioned a couple guys right there, too. Larkin, he has good takedown defense, a heck of a striker. I mean, the welterweight division in Bellator is not that bad, if you think about it. I mean, those are other guys that can kind of challenge Rory right now, because I'll tell you what, if Rory can't get Larkin to the ground, the striking matchup there becomes very interesting, because Larkin is an outstanding striker. Lima, the other guy that you're talking about, man, I mean, that guy is a stud on the feet as well, and he's got a good jiu-jitsu game to go along with it. So the guy can knock you out on the feet, the guy can submit you on the ground. He's improving. He's been around a while. He's a tough out. I mean, again, you give the advantage to Rory over all the division right now, because, he is legitly ranked in the top 5 in the world, like you just said, and he's been for a long time. But, I mean, those 3 guys, we're talking about Paul Daley now. We're talking about Lima now. I mean, he's a tough out too. Larkin coming over from the UFC, a tough out. And then we cannot forget about Korshkov. I mean, he just got beat by Lima not too long ago. He's a tough out. So, I mean, if Rory's still at the top of his game, he'll probably win all those fights. But part of me thinks that one of those guys is going to catch him, and he's, you know what I mean? I think he is going to lose one of those fights. But again, it depends on how fresh he is or how much he's got left in the tank and what we see, because all of those guys can strike really well, and most of them have solid takedown defense to go along with it. So I don't think it's going to be an easy out. I mean, those are 4 or 5 guys right there in Bellator's welterweight division that could definitely go over to the UFC, even though how stacked that welterweight division is. But they can be in a mix. I mean, those guys right there can win some fights in the UFC, no doubt.
Man, I didn't think about that. I forgot about Korshkov, and that's another that for stylistically matched up. That's actually a tough fight for Roy, just stylistically wise. And the same thing with Larkin. I forgot how good his takedown defense has gotten. Yeah, it becomes very interesting if they have to get stuck on their feet. So you're right. These fights now are becoming very interesting. Can't wait to watch this fight coming up tomorrow night. Co-main event. I forgot to ask you. Well, obviously you're leaning towards Rory MacDonald in the main event. Who you leaning towards in the co-main event? No best. Who you think is going to win, and then if you have to put your money down.
Who I think is going to win, I'll lean a little bit more towards McGeary, because I think that, he is the more well-rounded fighter. I think he's the more dangerous fighter overall, so I'll lean that way. But if I had to bet it, I wouldn't lay it. Honestly, I would probably bet the dog there, because I do think that his path to victory is interesting enough that if it goes to the ground, he might be able to surprise some folks. So I would take the plus money on the dog there. As far as Daley goes, it's almost tempted, like the other fight. Like as you said, I'm picking Rory, but as far as where my money would go, I don't know if I would lay Rory even at 3-1. Maybe if it was below 3-1, if it was closer, I mean, if the line dropped to like 2.5 to 1, 2-1, there probably would be a reason to bet Rory then. But I think where the line is right now, 3-1 would keep me off Rory. You know what I mean? And I don't think I would bet Daley in that matchup there. So I would go probably favorite main event and then dog co-main event. But again, my picks would be both favorites, obviously, because they were favorites for a reason. I think they probably do get the job done.
That's Nick Kalikas. I'm Frank Trigg. This is Before the Bell. You're watching us here at MMA Oddsmaker. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you again next week.